Hi, everyone. Hi. I have had an extremely chaotic couple weeks, and I feel really raw and just like floating right now. I got back after some delayed work travel. I was supposed to be back on Friday night and ended up spending 48 hours in the same clothes, stuck in the Atlanta airport. And so I'm coming to you really vulnerable right now and very teary. I've had some time to rest, but I honestly think I couldn't ask for a better way to feel, because I know that I'm received with love in this community just as I am. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach than Judy and Ben, just because of how the prompt landed with me. I actually think it's really cool that we all received it in some different ways. And it being open-ended was actually kind of a gift for me, because of everything I've had on my plate and whatnot. It just allowed me to see what came up when I thought about what it means to be a part of a new church. I got here in 2022 as well, but I knew about Peace a couple years before. I'm going to share a little bit about the church I grew up in, my dad, who was my pastor, and just my journey that led me to Peace. But I think from the get-go, I just want to remind us that the way that our church shows up online was nourishing to me years before I got here. I Google searched probably in like 2020 or 2019 progressive Christian churches, right? Because I was trying to figure out what that even meant, and what it meant for me to be spiritual and to explore my faith as a person in their young 20s. And I saw that Holly and Paula were pastors here, and I was like, there's women leading a progressive church? And I just kind of kept it in my heart through some really difficult times in my 20s, which it's hard for all of us, when we're growing up and changing. And I don't know that it necessarily gets easier. I just think that, like today, you kind of just show up as you are and hope that the people you love and know will receive you. When I first came here, I did cry. I actually, the first 2 or 3 times, I was just so moved that I just sat in the back and I just cried. And everyone kind of let me be. And I think that that was actually really important, because I didn't know that was going to happen to me. My body, had a response to being back in the church after 10 years and after kind of a traumatic end to my previous church. And I remember actually the first day, though, Jimmy, I don't know if you remember, you welcomed me on my first day. And it was really special. Just big smile. How are you? And then I cried, and, he let me be. There were comforting glances, but no one, rushed over to tell me about the, reason why I should join. And there's just a lot of that in our evangelical communities, where it feels like really intense at first when you first get to a community, and it can kind of turn people away. And I think we are so good about that here at Peace, helping people, be met with a friendly smile, conversation if they want it, an invitation to Bible and Brew, whatever they'd like to join, but it's never pushy and it's never without love and care and meeting that person where they're at. So I was really grateful for that, Jimmy, from the beginning. So I grew up in a church that was a lot like Peace. I have to admit too, this is the first time I've ever publicly talked about this. And so there may be some emotions that come up for me. We'll see how I do. But I was a part of a church from the second I was born. My dad was a pastor. We lived in Kentucky, and then Oklahoma, and then Gardner, Kansas. And he felt a call to start his own church, more of a non-denominational, on the more progressive side of things, but still relatively moderate in their approach, somewhat conservative. And there was a few organizations that basically granted our church, the funds to get going. They trusted my dad. He kind of went through a process, and so moved our family to Gardner. And, it's just a part of my week. Things on Wednesdays, it was just who we were. Dad was going to preach. Mom was doing children's ministry. And we started to grow a really wonderful community called Lifestream Christian Church. And as I grew up, I became more and more curious. I had a hard time, just like any kid, when my dad was preaching. I was kind of like, when's lunch? But as I got older, I around 10 or 11, it's like my consciousness kind of came up. There must have been something he said, I don't remember the exact moment, where I was like really thinking, and he noticed. And my dad and I, we have a really special relationship. And he noticed, and he helped me make sense of a lot of things. Like, I mentioned this when I got to preach with him a couple years ago, which was such a beautiful thing to get to do here. My first and only time delivering a sermon was right next to my dad, and out of, Holly inviting me to do that, I just couldn't be more grateful for that. But my dad, from an early age, he just really helped me with the questions I had. I shared what I was going to say, is that I shared during that sermon, some of you might remember that at one point I was like, Dad, why do Republicans hate poor people? And he was like, honey, they don't. They just believe that it should happen through the church. And our church did that, but I was looking around seeing so many needs and feeling like a lot of pressure. I've always felt a lot of like, I have to do and be something to be good in this world and try to help. And I saw that initially very much through my faith. And my dad was just a teacher and a steward to that. Why peace was similar is because we had to set everything up every day. We met in a elementary school, a couple different elementary schools. And we had this like crazy like cart thing that a couple people built that had these wheels on it that like would annihilate your toes if they like rolled over. So it was like honestly kind of dangerous every time we were setting things up. And my dad would pick one of us to go with him. And early on Sunday mornings, I have 3 other incredible siblings. I'm the second oldest. And so we would get to go, and he would get us McDonald's breakfast, which was very exciting. We would get to have a little treat and go with him and help set up in the morning. And it was to teach us about the value of our community and show us, everything that went into making church happen. And upon reflection, I noticed this in Holly and Paula and Eric and Catherine, there's just this energy about getting everything ready. And then they have to come up here and spill their guts, come up here and just be so raw and vulnerable. And my dad did that for years. And I just had no idea as a kid the energy that he was putting into that and the power of that, being someone who's going and hauling a trailer outside a mechanic shop where we parked it that sometimes had a flat tire. We'd get there on Sunday morning, a flat tire. He'd have to figure it out, right? Seeing him steady and stable and kind and generous. Seeing him be at people's bedside to help them walk through their last moments of their life. He was a crisis hotline. He was so many things to our community. And I think that seeing him do that, go through that, has really inspired me about what I want to do, which ultimately I'm considering. I know I'm going to go to seminary. I'm just kind of trying to figure out the timing and whatnot. And it reminds me so much of peace, too, because of that vulnerability I see in Holly and how drawn I've been to that. The first time I ever sat down with Holly, I'd spent a couple years, this was probably, I think, 2022, spent a couple years knowing about peace, being kind of shy, not sure if I wanted to come, and finally did. And I emailed her and shared that I was planning on at some point going to seminary. And I sat down with her and told her about what I wanted to do. I shared just open-heartedly a story, a version of that's evolved some since then because I've gotten older and have more life experience of why I want to go to seminary. And ultimately it kind of boils down to a version of trying to help people find inner peace. And Holly received me with so much clarity. No other adults that I had tried to explain, because a lot of people in my life really don't understand this part of me, this spiritual part of me. And friends, family members who are very conservative in their faith, they don't understand my version of it and whatnot. And it was the first time another adult had looked at me and been like, I see you. I understand why you want to go to seminary, and that meant so much to me. So thank you for that. Let me make sure, I'm a little all over the place with this, but let me make sure I'm getting to the things I really wanted to say. So over the years, my dad, as a leader and whatnot, he had to he had this internal reckoning where we had kind of a moderate church, and he felt a call to be more progressive. He wanted to be more justice oriented and more in the community. And our church was not ready for that. There was a lot of turmoil in him asking folks, instead of meeting on Sundays once a month, to go serve at Ronald McDonald House. People were just like, what are we doing? Like, how we need church, that's why we're here. And I didn't understand it at the time. I felt really angry and upset. I was about 16 when this all started to unravel, and I saw how much it pained my dad. And, it's no secret that the way that our pastors get paid is through how we all support the church with our money, in part, right? Some churches have grants, but a lot of it is like, it's us. It's emotional and it's financial support that we're providing to keep this community together. And in that change that happened, my dad, people just did not want to go there. They did not want to be challenged, and so people left the church, and with that left his salary. And we went through a really difficult time financially, and I think he felt a lot of shame about, not being able to make enough for his family, failing at the church. It was like capital T trauma that I did not know I was going through, that he did not know he was going through. And all of this coming back, to Peace Church, this is what he wanted, this is what he was trying to create. And he was just a little too early with maybe the wrong group of people. But that experience planted a seed in me that then 10 years later would grow and would continue to blossom. And I've just been so nurtured here, so loved, so well received. And I take that really seriously in terms of how I can give that love back and how I can help others that come here feel that way and be received that way. And I've been so fortunate to work with Eric and Michaela recently about figuring out our young adults group and trying some new things and trying to find a cadence with that. And it's just been so soul-giving, just really great energy with that group. And I'm so grateful to those of you that are showing up. I met a really wonderful friend here at Peace too, Ellis, and I'm so proud of him and his journey to obtain a PhD, and is celebrating this week getting his second master's degree. And you've just been such a light to me and a careful, conversation partner and whatnot. And I'm just so grateful. There's so many of you. I could spend all day talking about the ways in which I've developed a relationship with you all and whatnot. In closing, I just want to talk about the way in which I feel like, and this is inspired by what I have deemed Paula's space sermon a couple of weeks ago. I feel like peace is like the sun in my solar system. And I feel I want you to explore that metaphor as well for you, because I think that when we come here, we get something so nourishing that it allows us to be just a little bit more kind, a little bit more brave, sometimes a lot more, when we go out during the week and we're in the world. And that is such a gift. It is a tremendous gift to have a place where you can, throughout the week, but especially on Sundays, get encouragement to go out and fight the good fight, or just simply exist as a kind, curious person in the world. I have gone all over the place with my notes and what I wanted to say. Oh, okay, here we go. This is truly the closing. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm going over time here. This is a very bittersweet season for me. I am wrapping up a job that I love. It's what some people might consider a dream job. And I put in my notice about a month ago because my husband and I are taking some time off together, in part so that I can truly create some space to discern the timing for seminary. And we're going to be gone. Our last Sunday will be, I believe, the 24th. And we're going to be gone through September, possibly longer. But I'm coming back. I know I'm coming back. A lot of people are like, she's not coming back. because we are going to be in Europe, and Europe's pretty dreamy, I hear. So, but we're coming back. We have an incredible stepdaughter that will be here doing some awesome stuff over the summer, and we're going to come back to support her and her journey afterwards. But I thought I knew what that word meant, bittersweet. I was like, you throw it around, you kind of describe it when you eat something sometimes, right? But I feel an immense amount of grief about leaving the community for 4 months, and about leaving this job I love. And then I also feel so excited about the future. And I feel really grateful to have a chance to speak in front of everybody and just share how much I'm grateful for you, and how much I'm grateful for this entire community, our leadership, before I'm gone for a little while and come back. So thank you, Holly, and thank you all for getting through that with me. I appreciate it.